threaten the class interests of the ruling elite. Moreover, East Bengal was home to the majority of the new nation state's Hindu population, many of whom were active and vocal members of the official opposition and not content with being subsumed into the category of dhimmis. The Muslim League thus tried its best to contain East Bengal and deny it its rightful representation in the nation state, both at the symbolic level in the imagined community of the nation and at the level of the state, that is political representation, recruitment into the bureaucracy and the military, and access to economic resources. As the Muslim League progressively lost legitimacy in the aftermath of independence, limiting, neutralizing, containing, and ultimately actively undermining East Bengal's influence in national politics became the major preoccupation of the West Pakistani ruling class. From the perspective of this West Pakistani the West Pakistani national intelligentsia, East Bengal appeared to embody all the tensions of the nationalist project. It had a sizable minority of Hindus. Bengali language and culture was, according to them, irredeemably and inordinately influenced by Hinduism. And by demanding that Bangla be given the status of a second national language, this was actually the demand, is that if we understand that you might not want it to be the national language, but at least consider it to be the second national language. And by demanding that Bangla be given the status of the second national language, Bengalis had effectively shown their disdain for the idea of a shared Pakistani culture. This narrative dovetailed neatly with the political imperatives of the state, in particular with the ruling Muslim League Party. As a result, East Bengal was increasingly constructed in the popular West Pakistani imagination as a problem province, the place where all subversion against the nation state was located, and therefore the place which had to be constantly policed both literally and figuratively. The national language controversy thus stood at the nexus of most, if not all, of the crises and challenges faced by the Muslim League at this time, while also exposing the non-democratic character of its leadership. Having squandered the moral authority it had built up prior to independence as a result of the classes whose interests it now represented, the Muslim League proceeded to respond to all challenges by resorting to repression. It is telling, but hardly unique among post-colonial states, that this repression was effected through quintessentially colonial instruments of power: safety acts, security bills, press and publications ordinances, and declarations of emergency. The use of these instruments and of state repression of legitimate democratic dissent was in turn legitimized through a discourse of sedition in which East Bengal figured prominently. Following the tragic events of February 21st, 1952, in which, as I just mentioned, the East Bengal government fired on, or gave the order to fire on peaceful language demonstrators, the nationalist press in West Pakistan and the rhetoric of the central government in the Constituent Assembly became rife with references to subversive elements at work in East Bengal. These subversive elements, it was claimed, were none other than the, and I'm quoting here, one community which was foremost in the defiance of the order under Section 144. And Section 144, you must all be familiar with, is again, a colonial hangover which prohibits public assembly. Right? The community whose members had, and I quote again, instigated the local Muslim youth against the Muslim refugees from Bharat, that is India. This is Dawn, writing in February 23rd, 1952. While Dawn's language is oblique, referring, for example, to, and I quote, number of non-Muslim foreigners, unquote, who had been arrested while distributing inflammatory leaflets, again Dawn's words, it is hard to miss the fact that the absent referent in its discourse are Hindu Bengalis. Even the leftist Pakistan Times quoted the Civil and Military Gazette editorial, which claimed that, and I quote again, misguided students were exploited by political self-seekers for their own nefarious ends. And noted that, according to reports, among those arrested were many Hindus distributing anti-Urdu literature. This helped lend credence to the claim that there were obviously powerful elements at work in that wing of Pakistan who see in the adoption of Urdu in the end of their hopes and the frustration of their designs. And this is the Pakistan Times, the left-wing newspaper, writing in February 29, 1952. Thus, painting the language movement is nothing more nor less than an attempt to destabilize Pakistan. At the same time, the adoption of Urdu as the sole national language of Pakistan was pitched as crucial to thwarting the efforts of these fifth columnists. Dawn claimed that East Bengal was targeted by such elements, I quote again, because they believe that if they can disrupt that part of Pakistan first, then half their nefarious battle will be won. The implication of this discourse was that East Bengal was the weakest link in the national security chain, and that this had everything to do with the substantial substantial presence of Hindus. Rajkumar Chakravarti, a Hindu member of the Congress from East Bengal, justifiably complained that whenever there is trouble in Pakistan, it is attributed by the people to the enemies of the state and by insinuations that Hindus are regarded as these enemies. Another Hindu member from East Bengal echoed these concerns, pointing out that it has become a fashion to put blame and to question the loyalty of Hindus